Hey there berries, welcome to the support 14.4 patch notes and tier list. This time we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. We're going to be doing tier list first, as you can see. I noticed you guys just skipped to the end to the video where the tier list is, so I thought I'd help you guys out by just giving you the tier list at the start. And if you want to hear the reasoning and whys and why, champions are placed where they are, I'll explain more of that after the tier list, because then I'll go through the patch notes and kind of explain my thoughts and reasonings and things like that. And then, so yeah, if you want the quick little rundown, we're doing it now. There has been a fair amount of shifting this patch. Some of the champions that you might have been playing or seeing being pretty strong from the previous patches, some of them have been nerfed, and also there are support item changes too. So starting at the tier 5, nothing really to talk about there. Just a lot of champions that you probably really don't see that much in solo queue these days. The Seraphine in tier 5 where it should be. But yeah, I mean, she's not been doing very well at all recently. One of the champions that we've moved down into tier 4 from tier 3 is Lux. She's just suffering a lot. Her win rate is just like slowly dipping down, and with Riot's ethos right now of reducing the amount of burst damage, and honestly, Lux didn't really get help much in that regard, and like Zazax is getting nerfed, the support item, AP item, in the early-ish stage of the game. She's just not really getting like much at all. And so yeah, Lux is just not really doing very well right now. Karma moved into tier 4, and yeah, I did the right thing there. So a couple of patches ago, when she got buffed, I put her into tier 2, and that was actually, should have been tier 3. And then she got nerfed again, and then because of solo lanes. And then we put her back into tier 4 now. And yeah, that's the complete right place for her. Nautilus still not really improving. Nautilus is one of the really funny ones that I get asked a lot, and it's one of the champions I'm still kind of confused about why he's actually tier 4. I would actually probably personally rate him a little bit higher if it wasn't that his win rates overall are pretty bad. Should have probably mentioned also at the start of the video that these tier lists that I make are catered towards if you're Iron to Emerald, by the way. But anyway, yeah, Nautilus is like a really easy to champion to play, and he has a lot of crowd control, but he does fall off a lot more than even I would expect. So it's still quite a surprising one for me to kind of like go through like the stats and analyze why. So these are just like personal feelings and stuff. I do use like analytics in helping of this tier list as well. There are some cases where some champions do really well in solo queue, but it's a lot of one-tricks playing them, so it influences the stats like negatively, and I always take that into consideration. But yeah, Nautilus does get generally picked up by a lot of people looking to play hard engage support, and they usually don't do very well. Generally a tier 4 pick, unfortunately. Probably the strongest tier 4 I'd say here though, which I could actually argue would actually potentially be tier 2. If you play him a lot, and that's Swain. Swain can actually do quite well, being like a mage tank kind of frontline kind of champion, going like Leandries and the Rylai's and stuff like that. It's just that a lot of people can't actually do it very well. So I wouldn't really recommend you playing him unless you play like a lot of Swain. And then the Tom Kench, I think I'll just finally mention that, like the Tom Kench support has worked with a Senna pairing, particularly if you're duo. There's been like a little bit of cheesing going there specifically with Tom Kench and Senna. But other than that, Tom Kench kind of falls flat. So only play Tom Kench if you're looking to do that kind of Senna Tom Kench thing. Then it's probably like a tier 2. If you're really good, both of you, then like could actually be tier 1. But that's like the extreme kind of like super rare scenario. Yeah, I wouldn't even risk doing it in solo queue. I'd say you have to be pure duo for that to work. But if you play a lot of duo queue and you want to try something goofy, the Senna Tom Kench is still looking pretty good. Moving up into tier 3, we had a lot of changes here too, for Rakan, Lulu, and Bard. So Rakan is just naturally just dropping down. He used to be a tier 1 engage, but he's falling off, and there actually is a new tier 1 engage support, which I want you guys to have a look at. But yeah, Rakan not looking too great right now stats wise. Now Lulu is an interesting one. If I remember correctly, I might have even put her in tier 5. I think I did, and now she's like tier 3. We'll go through it in the patch notes in a bit, but she's received significant changes and buffs to a lot of her abilities. The most noticeable one is to her E. Basically, her E damage, I think, and her shield strength has been increased. So quite significant there. She's playing more. Her shields weren't like really comparable as much to like Milio, because he has the double charges. But now Lulu actually has quite strong shields now. So yeah, expect her to be played more. Lulu will probably be a higher tier depending on like your ELO. Like if you're high ELO, you'll get more benefit from Lulu. And I'm gonna like playing in Diamond / Master on my accounts right at the moment. And I think like Lulu is probably gonna edge out on Milio in some specific matchups. Like when you're playing with like a Vayne or a Twitch, I feel like Lulu is gonna be quite potent in that regard. But once again, she's still kind of tied down to like you have to buff up your AD carry. Milio has a little bit more freedom that he can buff a lot more people a lot easier because of his campfire affecting more than one person. Whereas when you're shielding a Lulu, just that single target shield. So that's one of the reasons why she struggles more than Milio, is because she can't buff as many people up as possible. You could go like a Moonstone route in order to be able to, like, when you shield a target, then someone else gets shielded so they can then also be affected by Ardent and Staff of Flowing Water. But you have to pay for the Moonstone, and, you know, it adds up in terms of gold. So it's not going to be like a super early or even a mid-game item that you'll be able to fit into your build necessarily. Go through some of the other picks here. Pyke did receive buffs. He's been doing like okay. Pyke one tricks are quite happy with it, I think, overall. It's just still Pyke is still a little bit tricky to play for most people right now. Same with Senna, tier 3. I think overall, like if you're like very, very good mechanically in like the exceptional circumstances, like Pyke and Senna are probably like tier 2, I think. But yeah. Another one actually that I nearly forgot to mention is Thresh. Thresh is receiving buffs. I think I did move him up from tier 4 to tier 3. Like a base armor increase. I think they increased the flay damage and reduced the cooldown reduction of the box, which is his ulti. Quite a significant, if I remember, reductions on his ulti. I think it was like 20 seconds off. So yeah, Thresh being a bit more naturally tanky, being able to use his ulti a bit more often, doing a little bit more damage from his E, just naturally just nice buffs. And they're not really affected by the Lantern. Like if it was like Lantern buffs, then it'd be like whatever, because the allies don't click Lantern anyway. But because it's like more individual kind of like armor and E damage and ulti CDR, it's going to help a lot more as an individual on Thresh. He's still going to feel probably a little bit squishy still. And it's still going to be very hard. He's like one of the hardest supports to play still. But when you're doing the things, and if you're able to be mechanically skilled in that regard, then you should get benefits from it. But you'll probably see a lot of the theme here. I need to mention Bard here in a second, but a lot of the tier 3 champions are actually like, if you're really good at mechanically skilled or play the champion a lot, you can actually probably do a little bit better. But a lot of the champions in tier 3 are quite mechanically intense. Bard being another one, he's getting a lot of nerfs this patch. Just trying to remember what they are. I can't remember what they are. We'll go through them in the patch notes, but I remember evaluating and going, yeah, this is quite substantial. I think they're trying to make it so like if you're going to lose the damage if you build Tank Bard, which is the standard build right now, from things like on your Q and on the Meeps, I believe. But if you go into ability power items, you'll get that damage back and maybe a little bit more extra on top. So they are trying to make Bard players more squishy, but honestly, I don't think people will. I think it's just going to be a flat nerf for Bard. I don't see many people going AP Bard. I don't think it's worth it. I think Tank Bard is going to be better still. It's just that his power is now reduced. I think Bard will, once again, another mechanical champion, would still be doing fine in Diamond Plus, but that's not what this tier list is about. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend people to play Bard if they're in Emerald or below. Moving up into tier 2. We have Maokai. He got moved down from tier 1 to tier 2. Is there anything else there? Soraka. Soraka got moved up from tier 3 to tier 2. So yeah, there's a lot of support changes. Maokai getting nerfs. I did say in the previous tier list, like, there's no way that this Maokai is going to stay the same as it is, because these nerfs that he got received weren't big enough anyway. So I can't remember what they even did last patch, but it was, I remember reading and going, yeah, that's not going to nerf him that much. I think they increased like his sapling cooldown and stuff like that. Anyway, he's receiving an armor nerf, and like an ulti root duration nerf, and I think there's a Q damage nerf, so he's still going to be like decent, but his power has definitely gone down from 2 patches ago. Like he was like literally SS, like pick, like crazy good #1 pick. He's definitely lost a lot of power since then. So yeah, that's the only real change into tier 2 apart from the Soraka. Soraka receiving a lot of little interesting buffs. Enough to nudge her into tier 2, I believe, especially with some of the other champions losing damage and stuff as well across the board. So it should finally enable Soraka players to start being able to heal some of their targets. Whether or not you better survive or not when doing that is another question, but it should, with the changes that Soraka's been having, they're more quality of life changes rather than like flat extra healing changes. But it should make your job a lot easier to do in the actual Rift. Now, tier 1. We have similar there. The usual kind of 3 really, or 4 now being Teemo. But Leona, I don't remember the last time putting Leona in tier 1, but Leona's stats in particular kind of surprised me, and she's doing pretty well. No significant changes here either for her. Slay is doing quite well right now, and Slay has been changed slightly. But yeah, the tanks have been slowly utilizing it over the last couple of patches. I'm gonna be honest, I kind of underrated Slay a little bit on the tanks, but I've been appreciating it a lot more recently. So yeah, Leona with Slay has been doing quite well. So she's the best engaged support right now, better than Maokai. Teemo is still doing very, very well, particularly in Plat Minus. Like Teemo is doing very, very well. Also, Malignance is getting a minor buff this patch. I know. +5 haste, I think, so that's obviously going to affect ultimate haste as well. So, points, more mushrooms. And he shouldn't be impacted too much. The AP is the exact change. Don't worry about it too much, guys. That's why Zyra's still tier 1. Zyra's receiving a few nerfs. Plant damage is going down minorly. And I think there was something else, but it wasn't crazy. And the Zizzax is getting nerfed. Kind of, a little bit. Like, especially like early game. It's getting nerfed a little bit. I'll explain more in a minute when we go into the actual notes themselves. But she's still going to be very, very potent. I mean, them nerfing base damage plants by like 3 or something, like who cares? We're playing Zyra to proc abilities. We're proccing Leandries, we're proccing Zizzax, we're proccing maybe Royal Eyes if we need that. Like, we're not playing it for the raw damage from plants like past like the first few levels. It's really not a big deal. I don't understand. Like, if they want to nerf Zyra, probably shouldn't give Riot too many ideas, but if you want to nerf Zyra, it would be like reduce the plant's auto attack speed or something, and then increase the auto attack speed of plants and the ulti by like even more or something to make up for that. So it's like more burst situation in the ulti, but like, yeah, I mean that's one idea really, but yeah, Zyra is still going to be really, really good. Janna in particular here is probably the best enchanter. Sona's doing very well as well with the items. Seraph's Embrace is also receiving another buff. I think it had its gold cost reduced by 100 in the previous patch. Now it's getting another, I want to say 5 haste. It could be 5 ability power or 5 haste. There's some stat increase there on Seraphs, and yeah, you're going to be building Seraph still on Sona. Something that I managed to whittle out of my builds at the end of season 13, but now that's becoming a thing again. We're going to go into the patch notes. If you are disappearing, then make sure you subscribe. And we do a tier list every 2 weeks. So yeah, so we're going to go into the notes if you want to see the actual raw data here and the reasoning for some of these changes. We'll go through this in about hopefully like 5 to 10 minutes. Let's see how we do. So you can see the nerfs, we talked about it already kind of in the tier list. We got Bard nerf, Zyra nerf, Maokai nerf. Buffs were Thresh, Lulu, Soraka. Item changes, I don't know why they're just not more clear on this. Lost chapter items, so that affects Xeraths and the Malignants. We got the support item changes as well. So we go down and see, so Bard received armor growth going down a tiny bit. His attack speed did go up level 1 though, so makes you feel a little bit nicer playing the Bard and a little bit more attack speed here. But the real kind of thing is in his cube, but his passive also did get nerfed. -4 damage per 5 charms that you pick up, but there is an AP ratio on, like we mentioned before, like how Bard, they want Bard to build some AP items now. Also the same on his Q too. They did nerf the latest scaling on his damage, so you can see that's gone from 260 to 240 of 5 points. But they increased the AP to try and tempt Bard players into going AP. We'll see if that happens. I mean, it could end up being a bit crazy. We'll see. In terms of like his 10 AP ratio there, 15% there. Could start seeing AP Bards, but we'll see. Maybe some more Zizaks on the Bard players. Lulu. So yeah, a lot of Lulu changes here. She's finally receiving some buffs, so we might see her in pro play at some point as well. I don't watch pro play, but I'm assuming we might see some Lulu soon at some point. Secondary bolt, glance, and gutter lance, 25 to 50%. That's extra poke and lane. It's pretty nice. Flat damage increase, plus 20 at max rank, which is pretty nice too. Also, shield value also increased by 25, which is quite significant, including from level 1 too. So yeah, pretty significant changes there. We've also got an AP ratio increase on her ulti, just to keep people alive a little bit longer too. So like really nice single target protection. So yeah, like really protecting your AD carry, protect the Vayne, protect the Twitch or whatever you're trying to do there. So really, really good with a hyper carry right now, the Lulu. Here are the Maokai nerfs. 4 minus base armor, which is huge actually. Like usually buffs, when you see buffs and nerfs, usually it's like plus or -2. -4 is massive early, okay? So this is why like if this could hit him into tier 3, just from that alone, it's huge. The Q bramble damage went down by 5. It's just like whatever, it's still the armor is the big one. And then you had the root duration as well. On the later stages, like it's still 0.8 to 0.75 isn't really much of a thing. But when you get like the full kind of travel distance on your ulti, that is quite a significant nerf there on the root duration. But the big one is this one in lane. Like it means that the Maokai is going to find it a lot more difficult at the start of laning phase really to be able to find that engage. So yeah, we'll see. Going down, Smolder, Staff, and Soraka. Yeah, there's quite a few Soraka thingies here too. So passive salvation, so that's when an ally is, I want to say below, is it 30% or 40% HP? You move faster when you run to them. So yeah, 70 to 90%. Yeah, you're going to be playing the ambulance sounds a lot more often in your games. You're going to be going super fast. Q, Star Call, damage going up by plus 10 level 1, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually percentage-wise, that's is that 20% damage increase? It is. 20% damage increase on Q level 1. That's pretty substantial. Like 20% is a big number. So yeah, a lot more early harassment during the laning phase. So we'll see how that plays out. This Equinox thing, I never really kind of noticed this that much, honestly, when playing Soraka, but it's nice that they kind of fixed this bug where people were able to potentially use an ability still when they should have been silenced. I think I had one weird case where someone was able to flash out of the silence somehow, like at the very start by buffering and another ability, but that should hopefully not be able to happen now. And then her wish, her ulti has been reduced by 10 seconds. So honestly, some really nice buffs here for Soraka. Just unlucky in a way there's nothing for W. I can see why Riot were hesitant to necessarily buff Soraka W. But I think it's a smarter way to go around like buffing the Soraka. I think if I was to buff Soraka, it would have been like plus 20 healing and 0.5 AP ratio on W, and then like leave the rest, to be honest. But I mean, this is a more unique like way to go around just purely buffing the W. So I think these buffs here are actually better than just outright buffing W. So yeah, I think they did actually a good job with this one, and we'll see how that one plays out. The Thresh, yeah, plus 3 there. So how much was that again on the sorry to scroll up here. So the Maokai received -4. Thresh received +3 armor. So even I see, to be honest, even +3 is quite a lot for Riot, and that's why like Thresh got moved up like significantly. I think in my tier list, really, like from tier 4 to tier 3, and I think he was like a low tier 4. Honestly, to being able to be in tier 3 was kind of crazy, I think. But yeah, like that's pretty big. And then his flay damage increased on the last point by 20. You're not really maxing flay though until second usually. You want to max your Q first, so this is like mid-game extra, a little bit of extra power. And then the box, this one's the big one really, 20 seconds off of your ulti. If anyone gets 20 seconds off their ulti, they're especially happy. So yeah, this is a significant buff now for Thresh. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Now, is that everything? No, Zyra. Because Zyra just had that little plant damage change, but it, like, I'm not really too worried about it, like -4 damage, but like, as I said, we're doing it for the procs, we're not really doing it for the auto, so, yeah, honestly, if they put her plant damage down to like half that, I wouldn't even be too, and then maybe up the AP ratio. Yeah, I think that actually, on hindsight here, I think they should go from, it sounds crazy, but 10 to 44 damage on plants, and then up this AP ratio to like 40% or something, to make her not as annoying during laning phase, but then make her much more like good in like the mid to late game when picking up AP items. Makes it harder to come out of laning phase doing well, but when you do, man, it would be so much fun. So yeah, I would like to see something like that instead, to be honest. I think that would be a reasonable way to reduce her win rate and still make her feel good in the games that you're playing well. So here are the big support item changes. So we are going to get the... They keep messing us around. So at the start of the season, we weren't getting those charges in. Now it will feel more like the previous seasons where you should be getting... I'm saying this in slow-mo because my brain's trying to think. You should get 2 charges now by the time the second wave comes in for you to be able to contest level 2. So it's going to play out more like the last season at the start of laning phase going for level 2. So yeah, if that means anything to you, then I hope you understand. So this reducing the charge cooldowns. Basically, they don't want supports generating quite as much gold per second as they were. But there's an interesting buff here. They're giving us an extra 100 health. So enchant supports and mage supports rejoice at not being as squishy, which is pretty cool actually. And we're getting mana regeneration and health and mana regeneration. Yeah, I think this is kind of nice. A random buff. I wasn't expecting this at all. I think this is really nice. They are nerfing Bloodsong. Like, okay, Senna got minorly nerfed a bit there. Don't really think many two champions were taking Bloodsong anyway. Solstice Slay is a little bit of a weird one. So if you have it's based off your own HP now, as opposed to flat health, which means this has some late game scaling. Anathema's chains and like high health items like that become more valuable now with the Slay. Also 90 flat movement speed going down to 30% bonus movement speed decaying over 3 seconds. So the movement speed isn't lasting as long. 30% bonus movement speed. So that would scale a little bit more, I think, once you have tier 2 boots on the person that you're buffing, I think. Someone feel free to correct me, but very similar movement speed in general, but it's like less. So movement speed nerf, heal buff, I want to say. So let's just say you have like 3k health. Yeah, right? Yeah, it's a minor like mid to late game buff that I think. So yeah. Yeah. Zizak cooldown got reduced earlier by 1 second, which is kind of cool. But they did nerf the early damage of Zizak. So 50 going down to 20, but you get an extra 1% of target's max health. This, and you also got plus 5% AP ratio. This looks worse than it is, because if you think about how much health the enemy has by the time you complete this item, say you're hitting an 80 carry, right? Squishy, one of the squishiest people in the game, they will have around about like 1,000 health, let's just say. They say they have 1,000 health by the time you complete this item. 1% of 1,000 is 10, right? Yeah. So you're getting 10 damage here that you didn't have before. So you put that over onto the 20. So this is now 30 instead of 50. So you're still doing like 60% of the initial explosion damage than what you were. But then like when you get into later stages, and if you're hitting tanks that have obviously much more HP, it's actually quite a nice anti-tank item. Like overall, it's still going to be quite good in the mid game. It just means that at the very like start of the game, when you do get this item, it's not going to have quite as much oomph as it did before. So early game nerf, mid game you probably feel about the same. In a longish like 30 minute game, you should be able to actually do more damage from Zazax than before, which is quite interesting. So yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. I think Zazax was quite overwhelming to deal with anyway, and I quite like this change. On the flip side as well, you're getting slightly reduced cooldown when you do pick this item up. So if you're poking consistently with something like the Brand or a Zyra, you're getting 1 extra proc in every now and then. So it's not like the end of the world, but if you're playing Zyra or Brand, you don't really... One of the weird things, you just don't have really another choice. The protection one is pretty bad. To protecting you, so this is really your only option if you're playing Zyra or Brand. It's just there's Zazax, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. If Riot literally makes this do 1 damage and 5% of the target's maximum health, you're still gonna take it if you're playing Zyra or Brand, because the other options are so bad anyway, so you literally have no choice. Yes, so here Archangels, so Sona buff 5 haste, Malignance, Teemo buff 5 haste. Probably, I know some people got asked me if I'd take Malignance and Zyra. I don't like it. I might be more tempted to try it now, but I don't know, really. It just doesn't feel great, honestly, Malignance on anything else other than Teemo, from what I've tried in the past. So, I might work on Swain. I think I tried it once on Swain. It wasn't a very good game. Let me know if you've been trying Malignance Swain, but like that's quite an expensive build anyway. At that point, you kind of want to like get Malignance like second or first item, and if you're playing Swain, you're probably picking Malignance third item. So by the time you got that, you're not really utilizing it as much. It's a bit of a mess on Swain. But yeah, Teemo always rush this. Gotta get those mushrooms out as quickly as possible. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else here now. Yeah, that's everything. Let me know if you like the tier list at the start of the video, and then do like the reasoning and rundown why afterwards. I do hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. I hope the 14.4 patch goes well for you. If you are a tier 3 sub on Twitch, I am giving you coaching. We are doing 1 hour coaching session for tier 3 subs on Twitch. This runs out at the end of February. Do follow the information on the discord.gg/Bizzleberry. After you've been verified, you'll have access to the coaching channel. Read all the information there, become a tier 3 sub, and then put your details in the appropriate channel. That's only valid for EU West and NA people, by the way, before you get too excited. I think we've already coached around about 6 or 7 people so far this month via this method, and I've got at least two more coaching sessions coming onto the YouTube channel for the 14.4 patch. So if you're interested in some educational coaching session content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing some coaching sessions with a couple of those people later in the week. All the best, berries. Take care. Enjoy the patch. Do let me know. I know I've said this already before, but do let me know if you prefer the format of tier list into patch notes, or if you want me to go back to normal, I can do that too. Yeah, all the best. Bye. Good luck. Don't int. Okay, I'm watching you. Okay, don't int.